Great. Um, Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on Meet the Authors. Um, I'm Nitin Kale, along with my co-author, Nancy Jones, and we are here to talk about practical analytics. This is the book that we published, the first edition, earlier in this semester. And thank you for joining us for this webinar. It's going to be an hour long. We will present for about 30 minutes, and that will leave us enough time for Q&A, for any questions. So let's get started. So here's the agenda for today. There'll be some, we'll do a brief introduction about ourselves, followed by how to teach with this book. If you're using our book in your class, we'll give you some tips on the components of the book, how to teach with it, and some of the best practices that we have come up with in successfully adopting this book for your classroom, helping your students getting through any challenges, obstacles you may have, and how to seek help. After that, I'll do a quick demo of a exercise that you might want to do in class. The idea is how to introduce a new tool and for the topics, the concepts from our textbook. And that will lead us into the Q&A part, and there's plenty of time for that. So if you have questions, you can type them into the Q&A tab found in the Zoom meeting. And we'll be monitoring these questions, and we can take the questions at the end of the presentation. So welcome. Many of you are familiar with me, but if you're not, this is the first time you're meeting me. I'm Nitin Kale. I'm an associate professor in the School of Engineering at University of Southern California in Los Angeles. I've been teaching for more than 20 years, and Nancy and I have worked on this book for the past 2.5, almost 3 years, and now it is in your hands to be used in the classroom. So we are glad that you have joined the meeting. And if you're using this book, thank you so much. We'd like to hear back from you. Over to Nancy.
Hi, I'm Nancy Jones. And if you don't know who I am, I teach in the accounting department at San Diego State University. So we're both in sunny Southern California, which is great this time of year. I'm an instructor in the AIS department. I teach in the graduate school there. And I also use the materials in my classes. So you're going to have two distinct views here. You'll have the engineering view and the business processes view. So welcome, and let's go ahead and get started. So practical analytics is actually an EPUB. We wanted to be sure that we could put the book into more hands at a reasonable price. And so it's available in as an iBook or Kindle, also EPUB MOBI format. So it's available to many students that way. And you can get that at Episteme Press, and we'll give you the contact information a little bit later. There are no hard copies. Well, I shouldn't say there are no. There's not a hard copy available for you, but if you want to, in fact, get a copy, you can certainly get a desk copy. Again, it's going to be an EPUB. The content also includes exercises and PowerPoint presentations, and the exercises have the answer sheets that your students will submit for you and also answer keys. And we're asking that you please do not share the answer keys, because then once those are shared out there on the internet, then the students have them, and it means that you can't use your exercises as effectively. So there's a lot of content out there in the first edition. We're going to talk about each of these components in turn. Here's a sample of what the textbook looks like. You can see that each textbook starts with the learning objectives, and so you can look at each chapter and determine whether this is content that will match with your learning objectives for your courses. This is the first chapter. You can see each section heading here. We'll talk a little bit more, but I think it's important that you see that in the whole entire book, we use Global Bikes, which is our SAP University Alliance's case study for examples. And you'll see Global Bike introduced in this first chapter and then continued throughout the book. That being said, you do not have to be part of the SAP University Alliances to use this textbook. It's just the case study is out there and it is available for use. If you are using SAP, then it's a real easy fit. So let's talk about the exercises. And what we've done is we've tried to match the exercises to the content in each chapter, and it's laid out very carefully so that the exercises are going to enforce the concepts. So what you learn in the text is what is actually going to happen in the exercise, and there are 1, 2, 3, sometimes more exercises, and at different levels. And it starts with the most simple level and then moves forward. There is a chart I'll show you here in just a second that will outline what software, if any, you need to have installed in order to do these exercises. Some of them simply need Excel. There are a couple that simply need Word or some other document. So we have the Global Bike Company, and we have the some extended data sets, lots of data out there. Some of the data is in Excel format, some can be in an Access database, and some of it you're actually going to access at a data warehouse, either at the University of Arkansas or at your hosting center. We have new exercises that we're building all the time. We've got several already in the works, and those will be included in the second edition. So we're continuing to add content and continuing to improve and update the content that's already there. We have, again, here, please do not share the answer keys with the students. Really important there, again, so that we can maintain the integrity of the exercises. I wanted to spend a little bit of time giving you some hints on grading. For the most part, these exercises are fairly straightforward and easy to grade. But what I have found to be helpful, and I think Nitin has found the same, is that I typically have the students do screenshots. And the screenshots tell me, 1, that the student has done the activity, and 2, I can see if they've had any problems simply by looking at these screenshots. And sometimes, for instance, I'll have the students put their name into the content, and then that helps me to be sure that it is indeed their content. Well, I guess you can't be sure of anything, but pretty sure that that is their content. And so I would recommend that as well. I've added some activities that you'll get to see in the second edition, but certainly you can take these exercises and make them your own. If you haven't already requested access to these supplemental materials, you can do so when you request your faculty or your desk copy of the textbook. So just register, please, at the epistemypress.com site. And the website is here, so you can see it here. I want to point to it because you can all see me. But anyway, it's epistemypress.com/PA sample. And that is where you would get your desk copy and your supplemental materials. Here's an example of one of the exercises. This is in Chapter 5 where we start doing the slicing and dicing. And in this exercise, it's actually for Excel. Actually uses business objects for Excel. And so it's using some of the SAP software. But there are also exercises in Chapter 5 that use pivot tables in Excel rather than using the SAP materials. So again, you can use that. And any of these exercises can be adapted to other tools as well. So you can see that as you get the exercises, you're also getting what is the objective of the exercise, what are the activities that the students are going to do, and any software requirements for this particular exercise. So that you're prepared ahead of time. What I've been doing with my classes is even though I've created some of these exercises, I still pull them all, take a look at them, and determine which one meets the objective of my course content, matching that up. So I have a new class, and that's why I'm still doing all of this matching. And I'm able to find exercises throughout the textbook that are going to meet all of my learning objectives, even though my class is an accounting class, and it's a capstone for the graduate level. We're teaching analytics in our capstone, so this book is actually matched really, really well. And I'll talk some more later about how to use the book, but I've actually taken parts of the book and I've rearranged it. So we wanted to make a flexible book and flexible materials for you so that you can adapt them to your class no matter what it is you teach. Here's an example of what a submission sheet might look like, because there's always, when we have to do the grading, we want to make sure that the students are submitting on a document other than the exercise itself, so it's easier for us to grade. And in this case, they actually have to provide screenshots in certain cases, so some of these answers would actually be screenshots. And this exercise has a lot of answers. Most of them have only a few. I want to reiterate also that each exercise may be at a different level. So in Chapter 5, Exercise 1 would be simpler, and then 2 and 3 get a little bit more complex, and so on. And they may meet the same objective. Just be aware that you can choose an easier exercise or a harder exercise, and we'll talk more about that when we talk about the pedagogy. Here's the answer key for this particular exercise. You can see again that some of the answers are simply just going into the data, looking for it, trying to find an answer, but others are going to be screenshots, as you see here in question 1. On these answer keys, we give you enough insight so that you can see, in fact, how you would come to that particular answer. Here's an example of the PowerPoints, and the PowerPoints are created in a widescreen so that you have better viewing with our projection screens. And we have PowerPoints for all of the chapters as well. So pulling out the key content from the textbook, I don't know what else to say about PowerPoints, but they're there for you. All right, let's talk a little bit about pedagogy. So we created this textbook with the idea in mind that everybody's teaching a different topic and everybody might want to use some chapters but not other chapters. So I'm teaching accounting students and they're kind of afraid of technology. So I had actually rearranged the chapters, and just chapters 3 and 4 talk about data modeling, and they're talking about data warehouses, and they would be fairly early into the semester. Now for my accounting students, I didn't want to scare them. So I actually did 3 and 4 a little bit later in the semester, and I also took part of chapters 3 and 4 and focused on that. And so you can, in fact, take these chapters, use what you need for your own learning objectives, and you don't have to use all of the chapters. However, if you do, and we would love that you would do that, we actually have 14 chapters, and there's time for 1 exam. So there are 14 chapters. You can have your 15-week semester. It should fit perfectly for you. Or if you wanted to spend a little bit more time on one set of material, you could, and you wouldn't even have to have an exam, and I think your students would love you for that. But anyway, a 15-week semester fits perfectly. And we've written the material to explain the theory, I think, in very simple terms I've did a survey with my students this semester to ask them what they thought about the content of the textbook. Remember, again, these are accounting students, and even though they're grad students, they might be a little bit afraid of anything that looks like it's either math or technology. I know that's really scary to think, but it's true. And so I asked them about the content, whether they felt that the book was too simple, too hard, just right, kind of like Goldilocks. And 97% of them said it was at perfect speed. And I don't know who the other 3% are. So I think that that's a good gauge. And I think that means that most of you out there can actually use the book. So it's explained in an easy to understand manner. We're talking right now, as a matter of fact, we're talking about some predictive analytics. And so you've got math behind it. And the book really doesn't spend a lot of time on the math, but how do we use the analysis? So I'm going on and on about this, but I just think it's real important that you understand that this book works at many different levels. And Nitin, you used it for your engineering students, and it worked really well for them as well. So
that is, yes, absolutely, that's correct.
Yeah. So different levels. The examples, as I mentioned, we use global bikes. So if you are an SAP school and you're using global bikes, the students already know that, and they can use the global bike example and understand how the analysis actually works for them. And then we have some real life examples as well. And so not only just global bikes, based on other types of businesses as well. And so that's in there to help the students understand the different concepts. So let's go over what the content is in the book. It's broken into 5 different sections. The first, of course, being the overview. You've got to have that overview. And this is where we introduce global bikes in case the students haven't seen global bikes before. This is where we introduce the whole idea of analytics and analytics in business, and start hopefully piquing the reader's interest into how analysis can be important to them. The second section, we start talking about the fundamentals. That is, how do you get the data? Where are the data coming from? What kind of data are there? And from that, we start talking about data modeling, things like relational databases. And then we do talk a little bit about the new high-speed databases. We talk about, there's actually an appendix for SQL if you want your students to learn how to use SQL. So we have an appendix with an overview of SQL so they can understand where the data are coming from and how to model them to put them into a data warehouse or an info cube. And last chapter, we go through where a colleague of mine calls it the rubber hits the road when we do extraction, transformation, and loading, so the ETL process. So remember I mentioned that chapter 3 and 4 for my students I saved for a little bit later, after they had gotten an introduction to analytics and we had done some exercises and done some hands-on. Then as we worked in an info cube from the University of Arkansas, I introduced them more to the whole idea of info cubes, data warehouses, and ETL. So the next section gets into slicing and dicing and reporting, and so manipulating our data and doing what analysts do, is playing with the data to see what it tells us. And then we're able to visualize it in section 4. We start out with the basic visualizations that you can find in Excel and other places, and then we move on to dashboards and advanced visualizations. Remember, there are exercises for each of these chapters as well. In the advanced visualizations, we don't get into the really high-end types of visualizations, but we do talk about things like heat maps and tree charts and infographics and tag clouds. And I have to tell you that students in general just get really excited about being able to do some of those things. I had my students create storyboards and then do some infographics, and they were just absolutely thrilled that they could do this. Now, I'm not really sure that they'll ever do an infographic in accounting again, but they loved it. So a very exciting way for students to be able to see how analysis pertains. The last section, we start talking about the whole knowledge discovery end of it. So we're going to be looking at making decisions based on our analysis. We get into the data mining in chapter 10, and then talk about the different ways we can use data mining. And if you think about it, this is where many of our business students, at least, will end up doing most of their work. For my students, they were able to actually do some data mining and then do some fraud analysis. And they were digging through the data. They were looking at different classifications. They were able to then determine that there were some patterns and some trends that were really out of the normal. And so this whole section of the textbook is really, I think, the culminating experience for a lot of our students. So we do start out with the descriptive unsupervised models for data mining first, and then get into the supervised models in chapter 12. After that, we talk more about big data analytics. And as we were writing this big data chapter, everything seems to be changing. What is big data? A lot of exciting stuff going on. I know a lot of our schools are pushing for big data analytics. And truly, I think chapters 10 through 14 are all big data. But we talk about it more in chapter 13, and then 14, how do we use all this? Okay, so tying it all together. How do we support our decisions with the analysis that we've learned how to do? And there's the Appendix A. So I kind of went through that really quickly. I didn't want to spend too much time on this, but I want you guys to understand how rich the content is. There's a lot there. And again, you could choose any of these chapters that you want to teach and leave the others out. For some people, it may be that you'll never get to chapter or to section 5 because you want to stay with the more basic content. You could, in fact, split the book and maybe do the first 4 sections or the first 3 sections in one class, and then move on to the other content in another class. Again, very, very flexible. So here's an example of the software guide, the installation guide. We'll give you a software installation guide, and we'll talk about installation here in a second. And this guide actually tells you which exercises are available and what software you need. And I think this is an awesome tool. Nitin put this together for us. And it shows you if you need anything from the University Competence Center or if it's all other stuff. And it shows you what the exercise is all about. And so you can choose, you could use this table to actually choose which exercises you might want to use for your class. So you can see here, let's look at chapter 5. If you look at chapter 5, you've got pivot tables for the first 2 exercises, and then you get business objects in the 5-3 and 5-4. And so if you didn't want to use SAP products, you just want to use Excel, you can use the pivot tables there. If you wanted to use your UCC's data warehouse, you would use exercise 5-3. And if you want to go out to the University of Arkansas and use their Teradata, their BWs, then you would use exercise 5-4. So you have a lot of choices here. So use this guide. I think it's very helpful, not only just to install the software, but also to help you choose which exercises you want to do. So again, the software or these exercises are adaptable for non-SAP products. For instance, in the chapter 5, where we use, well, in some of the chapters where we use Lumira, you could in fact use Tableau. And it would simply require that you do a little bit of adapting as far as instructions, specific instructions, but the objectives remain the same and the data sets are there for you to use. So if you didn't want to use SAP products, you wouldn't have to. I'm kind of partial to the SAP products, but that's because that's what we use. But anyway, let's talk about installation options. Now, probably, in my opinion, the very best installation would be on a virtual software lab. And Nitin has that at USC, and what they've done is they've set it up using VMware. You can use Citrix Server or Citrix. You can use all kinds of different software. There's software out there that's free. And what you would do with a virtual software lab is you would set up all of the required software on a server, and then the students would access it remotely. The licensing is there. You're good on the licensing. The one problem you may have is licensing for the Microsoft products. So anything that uses Excel, for instance, or PowerPoint, you'd have to make sure you have the Microsoft products. One of the other issues with virtual software labs is authenticating the users, making sure that they are in fact at your university. And that can be handled by your IT department, or you might get a grant to work on it. So a virtual software lab is really a nice way to be able to deliver the software to your students. A second option is to have your typical computer labs, and some schools still have computer labs. I know our school has gone away from the computer labs to a certain extent, but we do have a computer lab in the library. And so those installations have to be done on your machines. If there are upgrades, you have to figure out how you're going to handle that, and the installation requires some specific rights, administrative rights. I'm not a highly technical person. I can tell you that we've worked through the issues on it, but every lab is different. So your IT people have to be on board and be able to support you with that software. The third option is installing the software on the student machines, and this is actually what I do. Actually, I do a hybrid here at our school. I don't have a virtual software lab yet, so we have computer labs in our library, which I have to update every 6 months. The licensing for our analytic tools is now 1 year. Is that right, Nitin? It's 1 year.
That's right. Yes.
Which really helps with the computer labs, because before I was going every 6 months and having to update the licenses. Now we have 1 year. So that's very, very helpful. So in the computer labs, I just have to make sure that it gets updated on a regular basis. But we only have that in the library, and when I want to work on stuff in class, my students bring in their own PCs. Now, a lot of the software does not work on a Mac operating system, and so the students have to make sure that they have partitioned their drives and that they have a PC or Microsoft operating system on their machine. That being said, the students can actually do that. They're actually pretty good at it. I had a couple students who were whining about it a little bit, but they were able to figure it out. Installing the software on the student machines, I find that I have to place that responsibility on the students, because there's no way that I can understand how everybody's machine is set up. And I have the students do that before the second class. And I actually have a GA help to make sure that everybody gets installed by the second class. If they come to me with questions after the second class, then I tell them that they're pretty much on their own. And I know that's kind of hard, but otherwise I would be spending class time actually working on installations instead of working on the learning objectives. We have encountered a couple of issues on student machines, but for the most part, my students are actually able to get things up and running and are able to work on their systems. And the nice thing about having them installed on student machines is then the students take that software and they can use it for other classes. You can do that with your virtual software lab too. But I had some students using predictive analytics for a couple of their classes last semester, and the faculty who were teaching those classes were very impressed with the results. So the student has it on their laptop. Even if they graduate, then they've got that software at least for a short period of time, and they can use that. So I keep wanting to say, any questions? All right, here is a possible approach for teaching practical analytics. So this is the flow that we would go through, and we would start by reading a chapter, of course. And then one recommendation that Nitin and I have, and this is a strong recommendation, is that you test the homework and test it every time. So the BI materials at SAP, the BI software, is upgraded on a regular basis. They have a new version that just came out. Predictive Analytics 2.5 just came out a short time ago. So test the homework, use the current stuff, or have your TA do it, just to make sure you remember what's going on, and so that you can see if there might be any glitches. There normally isn't, but there could be. If you have any questions or you need help, ask for help on epistemypress.com forum. And we are monitoring that, and we will try to get back to you within about 24 hours. So, so use that as your help. So it's epistemypress.com, and there's a forum there for help. Then so the student's done the prep by the chapter reading. Now what you want to do is talk about the chapter topic and what you motivate that discussion. You're not going to reiterate everything in the chapter, or typically we haven't found that that's particularly helpful because the chapters are pretty easy to understand, but cover those key concepts. And if you use the PowerPoints that we have, that's what you'll be doing, is covering those key concepts. You then can choose to do a demo, and I don't do demos in my class typically. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But a demo works really well, and this is where you have the students sit hands off. They're not following along. They should only be watching you. And here they're learning about the navigation. They're understanding what the screens are going to look like. So make sure you keep their hands off the keyboard when they're doing this, when you're doing the demo. Then give them homework. Give them an exercise as homework. Now, where I'm a little bit different here, just as an option, is I actually do what I call a remedial exercise in class. So instead of the demo, we actually do an exercise in class, and then they do their homework. So they're going from an easier exercise to a harder exercise for their homework. So either one, depending on what your style is, how you want it to work, the level of understanding of your students. My students are grad students, and so I feel like they can figure out the exercises, and the exercises are well written, and I'm there, of course, to walk through any issues. Okay, so demo, then do the homework. And if your students run into any kind of problems, then have them post on your learning management system. Nitin and I both use Blackboard, and so I have a forum there. It's called Give Help, Get Help, and they post their issues on the Give Help, Get Help, and then the students are actually awarded extra credit point for the first correct answer, so that I'm monitoring the post, but I'm not actually having to answer a lot of them because the students want that extra credit. It's actually a star. In Blackboard, I give them stars, and they like their stars. But if they post issues on the learning management system, then you're creating a knowledge base, and students who have the same questions can get their answers on Blackboard. Then the next week you go over the exercise. What did you find? What were the results? What kind of issues did you encounter? What kind of light bulb experiences where the light bulb goes on, and how cool is it? For me, this is an exciting time because this is when the students tell me, this was so cool. I had so much fun with this. Or, you know, I really ran into some problems, but I learned so much. And I've not had much negative on here. Students discussing how difficult sometimes it is, for instance, for data mining, and that's okay because that's what it is. It is difficult. Although I did assign them a data sourcing project for next class period. We'll see what they say, because data sources can be messy. So this is one possible approach for you. Sign the reading, test the homework, and then if you have any questions, ask us on the forum. Then talk about your chapter, motivate the chapter topics, cover the key concepts, do a demo, sign the homework, and if students have issues, they post on your learning management system, and the following week is your feedback, and that's where you're going to recap what has happened. So now, speaking of demos, Nit is going to actually do a demo for us. He is going to demo our global bike revenue forecasting model using predictive analytics in the expert mode. And predictive analytics, in case you haven't had a chance to look at it, has two modes, automated mode and expert mode. So this is one of the later chapters. This would actually be chapter 12. And Nitin is going to do this demo in 10 minutes. So give us a second here. I'm going to stop sharing, and Nitin is going to come in.
Okay. I hope, Nancy, you can see my screen now. And
yes, yes, looks good.
So thank you for the overview of the pedagogy of using this book and how to adopt it for your class and support your students. So one of the things in our how to use this in a classroom is the classroom demo. And I just want to show you a very quick demo, which is actually an exercise from chapter 12, as Nancy mentioned. This is chapter 12-1 exercise. And it's a very quick exercise. You can assign it as a homework, or you can just do it as a demo in class to show how easy it is to use some of these tools. Now, of course, this is a very simple exercise, and the later exercises in this chapter get more complex. One thing I should mention with any live demo, from a professor to another professor, is you should practice it. Make sure it works on your laptop or in the instructor machine in the classroom. Or if not, you can do a video of the demo and simply play it. But I find that students get bored if you simply play videos in the classroom. So here's an exercise, and we're going to use SAP's predictive analytics. And we can run this this tool in two modes. There's an automated mode, which is simply to say, here's the data set, feed it, and let the data set recommend what model to use. The other mode is called expert mode, where you have to know a little bit about descriptive or unsupervised and supervised models. So in fact, we are going to use a forecasting, which is somewhat little different than predictive analytics. We're going to do a forecast. And what I have set up for this exercise demo is some historical revenue for a company, GBI in this case. So we have 5 years worth of monthly revenue. And you want to show your students how quickly we can do a forecast of revenue for the next year for 12 months. So let's go here. This is these instructions are available if you want to do this demo. This is included in the supplementary materials for your class for this book. So what I'm going to do is I am in expert analytics. I am going to choose a new document. And here it says, in this exercise or this demo, I would like to use an Excel file. And we'll navigate to that Excel file. And here we have sales transactions. We provide you data sets for every exercise. As Nancy mentioned, some of these data sets are Excel, some are flat files, some have to be scrubbed from the website, or they could be a data warehouse. So for every exercise, we provide you a data set. So here's a data set, and this is where we are going to acquire this data set. So we're just doing an import. This is where you can talk about data cleansing. In this particular expert mode, there's a lot of opportunity for data massaging, harmonizing, combining data sets, doing joins between multiple data sets, etc. But this is a very simple demo. So you can see here we have year, month, day data. We have currency for our revenue. We have the actual revenue. And we have the date on which this revenue is incurred. So we'll just create this, and now the system, the software will go and acquire these data. And as we come into the expert mode, you can see there are a data preparation tab. There's a data visualization tab. There's a prediction tab. There's a composition. This is where you can have your students report results as an infographic, as a story of their finding. Okay, and you can also share, the students can share these results with other students or with the professor using online services. But we don't have time to go through all of those. We'll simply come here and we'll say, I would like to see revenue. Maybe I'll do a line chart of revenue by year and perhaps by year month. Okay, so very quickly you can do a quick, visualization, have students do a screenshot, maybe identify some trends and seasonality, maybe ask them in which month is the revenue highest in general, and which month do we have low revenue. It looks like June. In the summer months, we sell this product. This is a global bike company, so this is bicycles. So in the summertime, there's high revenue, and then winter time, you can see here, this is in November and December is the lowest season for bike sales. Okay, so this is what has happened in the past. Now we want to do a forecast. So I'm going to do a predict. Okay, so we are in the prediction mode now, and here you see we have several algorithms. If you have never seen SAP Predictive Analytics before, there are many algorithms that come built in, and there are other algorithms we have introduced from the R library. So one of the major advantages of this software is the R integration. Before I do this, maybe I would like to filter this so that I can do the forecasting only for US dollars, for US revenue, and not for other revenue. So we'll go to data preparation, we'll apply a filter. So this is all drag and drop. It's very, very easy for students to follow. And they like this drag and drop so that there's not doing all the, if you were teaching R, for example, this demo will take an hour at least to do. So I'm going to go and configure the settings and say, I would like to filter revenue, and I only want to see revenue that was incurred in US dollars. So I put a filter here, very simple. So we'll filter that. Whoops, excuse me.
Currency.
Thank you. What did I say here?
Revenue.
I was saying, okay, got it. Thank you. So here we have USD, and there is some syntax you need to look at help. Maybe you can click on validate. What is going on?
Use your equal to.
That is true. Thank you.
Yeah. Only happens when you're doing demos.
There's a double. That's the point. So you can just use this equal to instead of typing it. Just I should do this over. Okay. So here's currency equal to, and then just type in the currency code. There we go. Thank you. And now we will apply a forecasting, and I think we'll use a triple exponential. Here's a forecasting. Let's see here. Time series. So if you scroll down, you'll see there's a triple exponential. And we'll do a triple exponential smoothing, and we'll configure this. And do we want to see historical trends, or we want to do a forecast? So we'll do a forecast, and we'll say, let's do it for 12 months. And the variable we would like to target is the revenue. This is what we want to see. And the period we want to see is our monthly. And you can put in your start year. So this, you have to look at the data. In my case, the data started from 2007, okay? And it started in January 2007. So you have to provide these initial starting points, and we just click done. So now you have created a model where you can see the data source. The very first box you see here is the data source. Then we filter it, and then we apply a forecast. If all of this is set up correctly, we'll simply hit run to run our model. And it says, it ran successfully. Would you like to see the results? Just click OK. And here is a table of the predicted revenue. So there you can see the predicted column. And there are some built-in visualizations. For example, you see here, there's a trend chart. So I'll click on trend chart. And here it will now plot the historical values and the predicted values for the next 12 months. Okay, so come on.
We should have
now,
music.
Sorry. Let's see what's going on here. I think I made a mistake. Give me 1 second here. I thought we had, okay, I will. Just give me 1 second here. File. I had done this before, so I can just show you the results. So here you can see the trend chart. So these were the data for the past, 2007 to 2011. There's a 5 years of monthly data. So the revenue forecast, the triple exponential, fits really well. And now you can see what the revenue looks for the next 12 months. So within 5 to 10 minutes, you could do a demo. You could do variations on this, ask the students questions. What if we did a daily revenue? So you can try this out in class depending on how much time you have. Or you can do a demo and then do an in-class exercise and say, I have done this, now try to do it on a daily basis. Or you can assign this as a homework. So that brings us back to our presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Nancy, if you can bring up the last couple of slides we have.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, but then I have to share my screen.
Okay.
Can you see it? No?
Not yet.
Oh, sorry, guys. User errors here. Oh, I know why. They have all these things open. Share screen.
So while Nancy is sharing her screen, I think we are towards the end of our presentation. So we would like to now invite you to ask questions. There's already some questions that were in the Q&A, so please feel free to type those questions in there, and then we can answer those questions.
So Nitin, you're monitoring questions, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, we are recording this session, so if you need to review any of this, we'll send you a link to the recorded session, along with which will also have all the Q&A answered either in text format or in the voice format. So we'll take some of those questions now. So if you have questions past our webinar, the best way to get help from the authors, Nancy and I, is to post your questions on the Episteme Press forum. So you can see the URL here. It's epistemepress.com/forum. And we monitor these forums. And as Nancy mentioned, both for your students and for faculty, this is a great place. They can look up questions, answers. It creates a knowledge base. So commonly seen errors can be answered here. And so sometimes you might find that your question has already been answered. Currently, we don't have a huge knowledge base because we are still trying to get people to use this forum instead of emailing us. So I would request that you don't email us directly unless there's a question that deserves that. So there's a question now from Chungwoo Park, a three-part question. Is there a test bank for exams?
It's in the works. So currently there is no test bank, but certainly we are working on our own questions as we do our classes, and then we welcome contributions from others.
Okay, next question is there any reason why you didn't include dashboard design exercise in the exercise list? I can answer that question. So Chungwoo's question is really about a SAP product called Dashboard Design, or SAP Business Objects Dashboards. And the reason we haven't included it is because that product is not being developed anymore. And that product has now been replaced by SAP Design Studio. So we are not even though this product is available and there was an exercise, it is not the going forward solution from SAP. So we didn't want to invest any more effort creating exercises. So please replace that exercise. If you're using dashboard design, please use Design Studio. And in Chapter 8, we have 2 exercises for the new Design Studio. The third question is, do you think we can use this book without SAP University Alliances? A question from a friend of the attendee. Nancy?
I'm shaking my head yes, because I definitely believe that you can do this without being part of the university alliances. You would just simply need to either have the students download trial versions of the SAP software or substitute out other software, for instance, Tableau instead of Lumira. So the concepts are there. The textbook does have some SAP examples, but they are examples only, and the whole theory and the whole application can be used in other environments. That's my opinion.
All right. We don't have instructions for those yet, and I don't think we'll actually create repeat exercises, but in the second edition, our hope is to provide guidance and not instructions. We'll provide guidance on how to adopt these, and especially point out the exercises that are most easily adaptable for non-SAP products. Because the data sets are the same, and simply their interface and how you go about it is different. So some of that work the instructor will have to do if they want to adapt it for some of the competitor products.
Yes. The textbook is good as it is, and if you want to do the exercises, you just need to adapt them.
There's another question from Arnold. Is there still a conflict between Lumira or Lumira Cloud and predictive analytics on the same computer, or has that been resolved? Okay, so I would like to answer that question. The first question is, let's just do Lumira versus Lumira Cloud. So just last week, I was informed that Lumira Cloud is not available for free. It is by invitation only. And we have an exercise that uses Lumira Cloud. So I have rewritten the exercise to use Lumira, just Lumira, not Lumira Cloud. So that exercise will be pushed out within the next day over the weekend. So you can download the supplementary materials, and you'll find there's a new the same exercise adapted for Lumira. The question of Lumira desktop versus predictive analytics on the same computer, our recommendation is to use predictive analytics only, because Lumira is a subset. It is embedded into predictive analytics. So you don't have the issue of the conflict. In fact, I don't know the answer to your question whether the conflict has been resolved. The reason it's not an issue for our book is we don't use the Lumira desktop tool. We simply use predictive analytics because chapters 11 and beyond use predictive analytics. So once you install that software, you get Lumira automatically embedded in it. So any exercises that use visualization or prediction all use predictive analytics.
Right.
Is that fair to answer? A fair answer, Nancy?
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair. And my understanding is actually that conflict was resolved, and I think 1.25. But again, everything we do with predictive analytics. So, and the other thing is, if you just use predictive analytics, then you're only installing one software.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there other questions? No? Anybody else?
Okay, so I think we are at the end of the hour. So if there's no more questions, we would like to thank all the attendees, participants in this webinar. Thank you, Nancy, for driving most of this, and hope you found some value and some excitement in using our book in your classroom. We are here to help you, and we'll do more webinars in the future, maybe even office hours. But if you need to reach us, use our forums. If you have a question for us directly, you have our email addresses that were posted. If you can back up, Nancy, to that slide. So it's nitin@epistemipress.com.
Oh, that's at the front.
Yes. And so you can ask us, email us at those links, those email addresses. Otherwise, Nancy, you want to say anything before we wrap up?
Oh, thank you for being here, and I hope that you find our book valuable and you can use it for your classes. And I guess that's it.
Great. Thank you all, and happy rest of the semester, and we'll see you later in the semester or in the next summer or at some other event. Thank you, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.